Hi everyone. We're back again. Welcome to Leadership and Leverage, where we have real conversations with leaders, founders, decision makers, and innovative companies. I'm here with my friend Laxman, and we're going to have a real conversation about his leadership qualities and how he's been doing it for different companies he has led and also startups. So, Laxman, welcome to the show. I should be thanking you, man. Thank you for accepting to do this with us. Appreciate big time. And what drew me to your profile was Connect. I'll be sincere with you
hmm
because I'm a salesperson and I know a great tool when I see one and I probably may not have used it, but because of the little experience I've got, I think I know what a great tool looks like. So when I saw SureConnect, I and for our listeners, SureConnect is it's like the dial but helps you know the people that are likely going to pick your calls for salespeople. So just like never bounce, but just tells you this person will likely pick your call and stuff like that. I know Laxman will say more about that as we have our conversations. So that was what drew me to your profile. I'm like, okay. And then I saw the video of you and your son, cold calling. Oh, that was amazing. Can you tell us, give us a bit background of what it was like before you decided to start Shore Connect? More like
hmm
maybe take us a step backwards, maybe a few years. Just give us a background. What was it like?
Yeah, cool. Sounds good. Yeah, so it's been almost like 5 years. I'm running this company called Outplay, which is a sales engagement platform. Helps sales reps like you and me to send emails, make cold calls, send LinkedIn messages, track all of them in one platform, and sync them to your Salesforce or HubSpot, whatever CRM you're using, right? So bringing all the channels onto one single pane of glass and have the visibility. So that's where we've experienced this problem statement for SureConnect. There are about 700 customers today that use Outplay, and across 700 customers, there are about some thousands of reps that use these email and calling capabilities, right? And even for our own sales team at Outplay as well, the biggest concern over the years were like, I'm not getting any meetings on cold calling. So probably it's something to do with the data we are purchasing, right? So you go to one provider and you change to another provider, and some companies buy two to five. I've seen companies having five different databases also. So they pay for the subscription for all five. So we've tried that model, but the biggest challenge there is when you buy five different databases, you get five different dashboards and five different Chrome extensions. Nothing better. You're making your sales reps' life even miserable, right? And are these guys really using all these dashboards and Chrome extensions? No, right? So at the end of the day, it's not solving the problem, um, but we don't have an idea about how to solve it as well. This was like 3 4 years back, so I'm constantly hearing feedback from the customers. They don't know what's wrong. It could be the data provider, it could be your dialer, which is in our control. That's why they complain to us. Or it could be your rep, it could be your ICP, your product itself. But nobody knows because we're all after better databases, right? And now it's the great time to solve this problem right now, because all the data players have opened up their APIs, right? So 3 years back, 5 years back, if you go and talk to a data provider, ask them, give me your API because I want to access your entire database, they would have called you the stupid guy, right? So now everyone has opened up these APIs, and there are a lot of companies like Clay, Full and Rich, and all these came up and said, like, you know what, we will do waterfall, right? You don't have to buy multiple data providers because we already have partnerships with them. You just ask me what phone number you want, and we will go and talk to all of these data providers and get you the number, whoever has it, right? That's a great way to solve. But the problem there is it's solving for the coverage. Like it will give you a phone number, not necessarily the right phone number, right? because in the waterfall you have five different databases. You went to a database one, asked for a phone number, they don't have it. You go to the two, they have it, and then you stop the waterfall. But you don't know whether this number is the right number. The third data provider might have the right number, where the second one is a wrong number, right? So it's still not solving for the accuracy, but it's solving for the coverage. So that's when we got this idea of like, okay, we've been using never bounce for last 8 years. Every marketer, every salesperson knows about it, and we all use it for a reason, right? Because we don't want to send an email to an address which gets bounced, right? And then we want to safeguard our email addresses, domains, and all that stuff. So the same story fundamentally applies for the phone as well. So that's why we call it like never bonds for phone, which is kind of an easy way to explain what it does, right? So you got a bunch of phone numbers, feed them into SureConnect. SureConnect will tell you which ones are correct, which ones are wrong, which ones are mobiles, landlines, office lines, and all that stuff, and who is likely to pick up versus landing in a voicemail. So you have all the information ahead of the time, which otherwise you will get to know only when you actually dial them. So it's a huge time saver for sales reps and a great motivation factor. That's the one unique feedback I've got from customers is like, so, okay, you make 50 dials and barely talk to one or two people that also say get lost or I'm not interested versus talk to 10 folks and book a meeting. It's a good day. I think you're on mute.
Yeah, I was just thinking about what you said about, you know, um it's funny how we've not really thought about it, right? Especially for salespeople. We just basically enrich the data and we just dial, right? So it's just data providers and parallel dialers and you rock and roll. But
Yep.
now what SureConnect is doing is trying to help you verify what's the quality of that data, what's the quality of the numbers you're going to call, what kind of numbers are they correct, right? And are they likely to take your call? So it helps reps to know who to target their attention to, verify those numbers. I think it's exciting. So I want to talk more on more like the administrative part of your company.
Mm-hmm.
What's it like growing SureConnect?
Mm-hmm.
What's it like finding the right people to build this company with? How do you approach identifying a great engineer or a great salesperson or a great early team member? What
Mm-hmm.
are some of the things you're looking out for? Because as a leader, I know you understand the importance of finding the right people, people that
Yeah.
understand the vision of SureConnect and what the company is trying to achieve and the problem you're trying to solve. So, how do you approach it? How do you see it? What do you look out for when you're trying to get someone to join your team?
Yeah, with SureConnect, I'm lucky because I've already built a great team at Outplay, and it's the same team essentially building the SureConnect as well. It's part of the same thing, same problem statement, same customer base, and all that stuff. But when building Outplay, obviously you first start with your co-founders. So you want to find the right set of co-founder who is kind of complementary in terms of skill sets and having the same commitment and determination to.
So, sorry to pause you there, right? How did you find your co-founder? Let's just pick that area first. How did it happen?
It's funny and it's easy for me. My co-founder is my brother. He is my elder brother.
Oh, nice.
So I'm fortunate and lucky there. I didn't have to go out and find one. I know how
Okay.
hard it is. So I'm lucky in that way. We both go along really well, and we've started off building some kind of crazy stuff and hustle and all that stuff since our college days. So once we're out of the college and joined our corporate days, we knew that we want to do something, and we have those complementary skills. Like we both are engineers. I'm not a sales guy, kind of by profession or by education, It's just a pure choice, okay, between two of us. What are you comfortable doing versus what I'm comfortable doing, right? So I enjoy talking to people. I enjoy, in a way, it's sales, but it's kind of never called sales.
Hmm.
But
Yeah.
I enjoy talking to people, talking to them, understanding their pain points, solving them, getting feedback, and all this. This is something that I enjoy. So we both said like, okay, I'm gonna do everything else but building the product, and
Hmm.
you get to do the product stuff, right? So that's how
Makes a
we
lot of
decided.
sense.
Exactly. That's how I found my co-founder.
Uh, how about other team members, right? How did you build your early team?
Yeah.
What were the things that you were looking out for when you
Okay.
were building
Yeah.
the early team?
So the first two to four folks or five folks that we got are from our network. We knew
That's cool.
these folks since our college days, or I met them in my corporate life. I know about them, right? So because if all of a sudden, if you go out to the market and want to hire people purely based on their interviews, it's really tough in the early days because you barely know them, and it's very easy to hide what's your weakness and what's your strength and all that stuff in a 1 hour conversation, or probably in a few interview calls, right? So I think it's natural. Every founder would do the same thing. It's nothing crazy that I did. You first look out for your own network on people that you know. They're
Yeah.
okay. He's a good engineer,
Yeah.
and I'm working with him like last 5 years, and I can kind of trust him, right?
Mm.
And then the same trust that they should also have on you about, okay, why did you quit your job and doing a startup? Is it safe for me to quit my job and join hands with you? So
Hmm.
there are a lot of things that goes into it when you're building for the first time. So obviously it's always best to get those first set of initial folks from your network, which will help you build your product, get the traction, probably raise money or have some revenues. That's when it's very easy to convince the outside people to join your mission.
Makes a lot of sense, Lax. It makes a really big sense because I remember when I was also starting to teach people how to sell software about 2 years ago. I it was my friend from college, from the university, that I reached out to. I've known him for years. I'm like, I'm trying to do this thing, right? Can you help me build a website? And V1, V2, V3, he's always been the one to, the guy behind the doors. I'm not technical.
Yeah.
So I can totally agree with you about, falling back on your network and your friends, people that understand you at the early stage, especially when you're bootstrapping. So you need people that can stand by you at the early stage. That makes a
Yeah.
lot of sense. I want to ask you, Lax. We want to delve a bit into maybe the areas that are not so glamorous.
Hmm.
Um, every founder faces challenge peculiar to their industry, to the product, and what you're trying to build. So, what were the first set of challenges you faced as a founder? What were the very first things you had to tackle? You had to figure out when you were starting. I mean, SureConnect this time around, and you could always talk about other ones as well.
Yeah. With SureConnect, I mean, I don't call it as challenge because we already have Outplay and we already have hundreds of customers who has the same pain point. So with SureConnect, it's pretty much easy compared to starting Outplay. You already have a base, you already have a team, you have funding and all that stuff. It's not that hard to start a new product selling to the same set of customer base, right? But I can kind of relate that question more to the Outplay days, as to, like, as a founder you got the idea, and there are only two type of ideas in this world, right? Either you build completely new stuff, which is like there is nobody else in the market doing it, and
Are
you're
there
the
really new
category
stuff?
creator.
I don't think they are really new stuff.
Exactly, yeah. There is nothing right now, but I mean, unless you're kind of coming up with another moonshot idea, which is completely possible. But otherwise, there are either you're creating a category or you're joining a category, right?
Mm,
So
mm.
if you're creating a category, that's a different story altogether. Like, first, nobody knows about the problem that you're solving, so you have to convince, you have to do the education, At the same time, you have to build the product without even knowing whether really people really need this thing or not. That's a really, really tough game when you are
Tough, really tough.
creating a category,
Hmm.
right? But the real challenges for 99% of the founders who are not creating a category but joining the category to make it better and beautiful is, in our case of Outplay, we were building Outplay to compete against the big companies like Outreach and Salesloft, right? So those are our two competitors when we started. So when you're starting something like that, those are the companies which are in market for almost 8, 10 years already ahead of you, right? So they've built like thousands of features, integrations, features, or whatever you call them, right? And they have a team of 500 folks, 200 million in the bank, and all that stuff. But when you are starting, who would you build it for, right?
Hmm.
So you can't wait until building those 1,000 features for feature parity.
Hmm.
But when you go and talk to customers, obviously they would expect you to have all the features, right?
True.
So if I'm an outreach customer and if I want to move into Outplay, I need all those features. It doesn't matter whether I'm using every day or not.
I
Even
agree
if
with
I'm
you.
even if I'm using the feature once a month, I still need it, right? So it's a kind of, where do you start and how would you catch up with them who have been building for last 10 years with 500, a big team, right? So that's where a lot of founders get it wrong. A lot of founders would wait to launch until they build all the features. There is no perfect day to launch, and there is no launch date as such. Like you would launch 10 times, 100 times until someone notice, you would keep launching it. Who cares?
Yeah, yeah.
Right. So the very important piece in there, the reason I brought the topic is, obviously you have to narrow down who is your exact customer base, who can live with whatever those 10 features you've built and can wait until you build the rest of the 990 features, right? So finding that customer base is the biggest challenge in the early days. You would have to
Hmm.
talk to a lot of folks to narrow down your ICP and
Yeah.
find those early guys who would join you as a design partner, and then start building on from there. Otherwise it's kind of a chicken and egg problem, right? So you need funding, you need people, you need a full product before you go into the market, but you can't wait until that time.
Hmm. Makes a lot of sense. You can't wait till you're fully ready. I don't think anybody can ever be fully ready. But now, Lax, I'm thinking about it this way: getting everybody to key into a vision in a company. I don't think it's something easy.
Yeah, it's not.
I don't think it's easy. I think even if you know, in the early days, everybody is keyed in and understanding what we're trying to build, and you have this series of challenges. It's easy for some team members to start thinking of how to jump ship. So, as a founder, as a leader, how do you navigate that? How do you try to get as much people as possible in your team? Maybe at the early days or when the company is growing. How do you do it to ensure that everybody is keyed in into the big vision?
Yeah. So you have to keep reminding people about what's your vision. So of course you've told them already, they liked it and that's why they joined it, but that doesn't mean they keep it on top of their head all the time. As a founder, you keep it on top of your head all the time, but may not everybody may not be doing it inside your company. So you have to keep reiterating about why you exist. And the one thing that helped us is the transparency within the organization. So everybody knows what's happening, everybody knows what's not working versus what's working and where we are heading, who else
Nothing
is
is nothing
doing
is
the,
hidden.
yeah, so who else is doing good in the market, where are our shortcomings versus where are we best compared to the competition, what are we winning, what are we losing, and all that stuff. So I mean, it's a sense of transparency that keeps them keep trusting you about whatever you're building, because they need to know what is happening
Yeah.
behind the scenes as
Yeah.
well,
They need to.
right? So that's when they keep start. I mean, it's not that you're the only founder and you know everything and you always have to have filters on what to share, what not to share.
Yeah.
But you moment you also bring them into the ring,
Hmm.
they know the real fight now, right? So you
Yeah.
don't have to explain everything. They're already
I know.
watching you.
I agree with you. True. 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 Well, that's a very solid answer. Transparency, and I think the more leaders are transparent, even if they're not founders, right? They're leaders, they're directors, they're C-suite, they're managers. If they're transparent as to, of course, there are some sensitive matters in the company that you just have to
Yeah.
keep sensitive, of course, but the ones that should be communicated to the team, if everyone is communicating, I think it helps to maintain that drive, that momentum, even up to the last person in the company is able to take. For example, maybe company is struggling to stay afloat. Maybe funds are reducing, bond rate is super high.
Yeah.
Letting the team know about where the company is at the moment. I think it helps everyone to, you know, put in more efforts to get the company out of there. So
Yeah.
I agree with you completely about transparency. Makes a whole lot of sense. But then again, what would you say is one mistake you've noticed that many leaders make when it comes to steering the company in the right direction? What would you say is one thing you've noticed that a lot of them make without even knowing about that, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So on a hindsight, probably I don't know if it's kind of the same thing for everybody, but in the last 2 3 years there are so many things that's changing at a real fast pace in this environment. So like one side, the whole macroeconomics and all that stuff, it's going down.
Mm-hmm.
On the other side, the innovation is kind of on a all-time high pace
Mm-hmm.
in terms of how things are changing, right? So earlier it used to take like 10 years to disrupt something, and then it came down to like almost 5 years during the pandemic stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and now it's almost 2.5 years. Like whatever you come up with will get kind of almost irrelevant or change the style of it in the next 2 to 2.5 years, right? So unless you're staying on top of it and you're also keeping your team stay on top of it, right? So otherwise, like probably maybe as a founder, you're staying on top of what's happening and you have all those changes that you want to do to your product company and all that stuff in your head. But if you don't keep your team also travel the same journey, for them it sounds like you're doing a huge change when you ask them to make a change. It could be product, it could be the style of working, it could be the way you market your product or the way you spend money also, right? So when there is so much money available in the market, everybody was buying every tool that you see in the market. You just go and sponsor a lot of shows, a lot of trade shows and all that stuff. But if team doesn't know that what's happening in the market and why everybody is so conservative about funds, everything that you don't approve, for them it feels like you're rejecting their ideas, right? But if they also know what's happening, they'll be cautious even before they come to you,
Yeah,
right?
that's true.
So a lot of things you just take them with you in this journey so that they don't feel like they're left behind or they're getting rejected for every creative idea. Sometimes your idea could be the best creative idea possible, but it's not realistic in today's environment.
So do you think leaders sometimes in recent times spend so much more than it used to be? Did you think they go way overboard when it comes to
Uh,
spendings?
no, they're not spending compared to what they were spending earlier.
Okay.
Right. So every small or big company doesn't matter. They're on high time reserving their cash, very conservative on what they spend right now, because that's how the situation in the market right now.
Hmm.
Right. So you
Hmm.
can't just keep on experimenting, which was the case when there is so much money available in the market. You were kind of running 10 different ideas at the same time because you
Hmm.
could afford to spend it.
Mm.
But right now, whatever is working for you, just do it first. And then, if you have time and energy and funds, probably you do the experiments. So that's how the shift in how you run the business is right now.
Yeah, I appreciate you talking about that. And there was something you said about times changing is much more faster now to disrupt things. And just to talk a bit more on that, things are changing. How things were done a few years back is different from now. It's easy to even found a startup,
Yeah.
like how it was a decade ago. Things are much more access to tools is much more easier nowadays. You can even start something this minute. And then it makes me wonder, how do leaders ensure that the company is innovative, right? The fact that things are changing, users they want this thing, this new feature or that new feature, or they're facing this challenge and need something to solve it in the tool they're using. So as a leader, how do you approach it when it comes to innovation, when it comes to change, when it comes to being adaptable? How do you see it, and what are some things you think you do or other leaders can do as well to
Yeah.
stay innovative in that field?
Yeah, there are two things that I do, and obviously every other founder must be doing it already. Is one to stay on top of whatever happening in the market.
Mm.
What are the new tools coming up, or new AI modules coming up, or LLMs and all that stuff, right? So stay up to date, like almost like real time in terms of who is doing what, who is launching what, and how can we incorporate that into our product, and what can that solve for our customer base. That's one thing. And the second and the most important thing is staying in touch with your customers all time, because they are the ones facing those challenges, and they are the ones always scouting for solutions in the market. And if they find a solution, if you are in a reachable distance, they would tell you first, because they want you to solve that problem. Only if you don't solve, that's the only time they want to move out and search for something else or buy something else, because you're not solving that. And if you're in touch with your customers, probably one customer, one out of 10 customers might think of solving this problem. But for other nine customers, it sounds and looks like innovation for them, because they're not thinking about solving it yet. But you've built something and then offered them, like, hey, this is a problem you might be facing, and we built a solution for that. That's called innovation for a lot of customers.
I like that. I agree with you. Let me give you a typical example. It's just like when Hyperbound was launched, the
Hmm.
AI code email
Yeah,
role play session, right? I was among the first that they reached out to just give feedback on. I thought it was the first of its kind. I think this
yeah,
is amazing, right? And now, guess what? Nukes also has built something similar,
yeah,
and I think that's fantastic, right? Because of course you already have a database, you already have customers who use your platform to make calls, so
yeah,
it complements. They could
exactly.
always practice with the AI. When I saw that, I'm like, oh, this is good. So I think that's a typical example of staying innovative, knowing what people want, because the
Yeah,
adoption, the reception of Hyperbound was massive. I
exactly.
was even surprised. I knew it was going to be received, but it was way beyond my expectation. And I think
Yeah,
that's
no,
really great.
100%. I've tried them yesterday. They're doing that bot challenge 2.0
Yeah,
or
yeah.
something. I've tried it. Even my kid tried it.
Hmm.
We both booked a meeting, so it was fun to play with the
Nice,
bot.
nice, nice, nice. So now the question I wanted to ask you basically is around red flags when it comes to leaders. It's two ways basically: leaders and the employees.
Hmm.
So for you, what would you say are some red flags employees should look out for? Nobody's perfect, and we are not expecting perfection from our leaders. Nah. But what are some things that you know you might advise someone, if the person is an employee, maybe a starter, or the person is growing mid-level, that the person should look out for, or if the person sees things like this, it's not a good sign. And then on the part of the leaders, other leaders, what are some things that are red flags and green flags as well for some employees? It could be an employee that is starting a career in sales, but what are some early signs that shows that this person is serious about his career, and how the company can also help that person to keep improving on that area.
Yeah. So in my view, there are two type of leaders. Like one is who leads the by example.
Mm,
They know what they're talking about.
yeah.
They know what they're expecting from you. It's very
Mm-hmm.
clear, right?
Yeah.
And if you're stuck, they know how to kind of pull you out of that. So that is kind of leader. Obviously, everybody wants to work with. And even if I for to work for somebody, this is kind of leaders I would look forward to, right? And then when it comes to the employee side of things, obviously as a leader, if I want to hire somebody, what I really look forward in them is obviously the I will see whether if this person is stuck somewhere, will he just wait for someone to come and help, or whether this he or she is proactive enough to go and figure out how to solve it, right? So you could do two things when you're stuck somewhere, right? You could just wait and hope somebody will come and help you,
Mm-hmm.
and then complain about how your manager is not helping you, not giving you a time, and all that stuff. Or you could invest your time in figuring out who else solved it or how to solve it. Are there any ways to solve it? And then go with the research to your manager or your leader and tell them, like, hey, I'm stuck here. I did some research. This is how people solved. These are the two, three different ways I found. What do you think about it? Now, this leader may choose one of those three, or he might have a fourth way of doing it, right? Because complaining is very easy,
Very
but
easy.
sometimes if you try to solve all by yourself, you may even find a better way, which is the fourth way. That's better than all three ways. Then you're saving a lot of time for yourself and your boss, and also you're kind of gaining a lot of trust from this boss, right? Okay, I don't have to watch this person like a kid, right? I don't have to watch you always as a kid and help you, but you're on your own. I just need these things. I'm expecting these from you, and you're on your own. You don't have to watch me, micromanage me. I will do things. If I'm stuck, I'll come with not only the problem, but I'm also coming up with possible solutions.
Yeah. um Now, for some of those employees, I'm talking about leader now, right? When a leader notices some really good skills or traits in an employee, maybe not full blown, but something that can be built on,
Hmm.
what are some things you can advise that leaders can do to bring out the best in certain employees? Because sometimes these employees are raw, they have raw skills, right? And I've seen situations whereby an employee is employed to do this, and sometimes the leader notices that the person is well suited in some other areas, right? So, what are some things you think that leaders can do um, for small teams? Founders are more engaged with every employee, and for larger teams, managers might be more engaged with his employee. What are some things that you think leaders can do to identify and hone these skills, build on those skills, nurture these younger employees for them to become their best?
Yeah. So it's very basic, right? The fundamental stuff. Appreciate for whatever the creative stuff they come up with. Encourage them to do more of that by giving them all the trust and give them more opportunities to prove, right? And then if this is really good, obviously there's no ego, appreciate them. Your way is better than my way. And obviously that's the reason that you hire people in the first place, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you know everything, if you can do everything all by yourself, then you don't need anybody,
Sure.
right? So you hire experts or specialists because you think and trust that they are better than you in particular job. And when they do that, appreciate them and give them more ownership. And that's how people feel a sense of responsibility, because now this person is trusting me to do something and then he's giving me more of that. So I should not get him down, right?
Hmm.
And then everybody is watching. It's the peer competition, or whatever you call peer pressure, or whatever. Like it's a fundamental thing, right? If there is a team of three sales reps, one is performing, the other two can't keep complaining about the data tools and all that stuff. You have to figure out your shit together to make numbers up.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. Trust, some leaders, I think that maybe why some of them micromanage. They don't trust that you know, you can do that, right? I think
Yeah, you
when
can't
you
do that
train
for a longer time.
them. Hmm.
Obviously, you can't. I mean, that's not the way to scale your company. If you micromanage, obviously you need a manager for every three folks or five folks, and of those two will quit within no time because no one wants to get micromanaged.
Hmm. Yeah, train them, trust them, and appreciate them,
Yeah,
right? Appreciation is really important. It's funny how sometimes leaders, maybe they get busy or they water down certain things that employees do. I don't think it's totally their fault,
yeah,
right? Because sometimes, because leaders have risen along, let's say, for example, a leader that is a VP of sales, and a new salesperson books his first meeting.
yeah,
If you look at it critically from that leader's point of view, it's just the first meeting, but
yeah.
it means the whole world to that person. I
Exactly.
think appreciating the person at that point in time, um,
Just
announcing on
like
the
how
Slack
we
channel.
treat, just like how we treat our kids, right? You appreciate
Yeah.
them for every, even if they take their first step, also you
Mhm.
appreciate it. But that's what they're gonna do for the next rest of their life.
True.
It's no big deal.
True. It's no big deal. So appreciation is really important. Sometimes it's not even about. I think it's not even about the big wins.
Yeah,
It could be something little. It could be,
exactly.
let's say, a customer that was furious about a certain issue and someone was able to handle it well. Send a shout out. Appreciate the person.
Exactly.
You know,
Exactly.
it might not
Especially
be
in
bonus.
startups,
Yeah,
everything is a win. Everything is
appreciate.
a win in startups. It's because the whole journey of getting there to those big wins, it's gonna take a lot of time.
Yes,
If you
a lot of
don't
time.
celebrate every small thing, you won't get
Yeah,
there.
yeah. Celebrate every small win, right?
Exactly.
Make it big. Make it sound like it's big. And of course, it's big. It's those small things that are building blocks that will get you to the big one.
It's
So
big. It's always big. You'll kind of feel it's small only
yeah,
when you grow big.
yeah.
Until then, it's a big.
True. I agree with you. Just like when I was starting, when I was thinking of, I wanted to connect with more leaders. And I started reaching out to leaders like you, started reaching out to, and when I got my first person, I said, oh, yeah, yeah, it was you that said, yeah,
Okay.
yeah, you were the first. I said, oh, yeah, let's do it. It meant so much to me,
Yeah.
right? It meant so much. So, celebrating those small wins, it can only do good for you and for the leader. So I think it's really something amazing. It's really something amazing. What would be one advice, basically, you probably would give leaders? If there is one advice, uh, before we move into other areas, if there's one advice you probably give leaders today that can never go out of time, what would it be?
Yeah. So I mean, think from the people's show, right? So if you're hiring a sales rep, before you give them the activity target, like, okay, I want you to send 50 emails, 50 calls, and all that stuff, just be in their shoes for a while and think about
Hmm,
how that actually feels, right?
be in their shoes.
Exactly. Will they be really be able to do 50 emails and calls and then follow up after that and all that stuff? And how much time it takes for a human being to do all that stuff? And If that's too much you're asking, are you equipping them with all the tools that they need to make their life
Tools.
easy and all that stuff? Just don't give them the targets, but enable them also to achieve those targets, and I mean, make it easy for them so that they start believing, okay, it's possible, right?
I this is it seems very, it seems like it's something every leader knows, but it seems simple, but it's not
Exactly.
always the case.
Yeah.
This is basic. It's not something that most leaders have not heard about. But now, why, Lax, why would you say it's difficult for leaders to be in the shoes of the people they lead? Why would it's not easy? I know a lot of leaders that they don't care. Oh,
Yeah.
this is what you need to do. Just go get it done. However,
Yeah.
even if I can't do it, that's why I hired you.
Yeah.
So why would you? How do employees this time around
Yeah.
navigate situation whereby they're given something they really can do, and the leader on the other side don't care, hasn't even considered if he can ever do that. So how do employees do navigate that? What do they need to do in such situations?
Yeah, it's not neither the mistake. It's not employer's mistake or it's not employee's mistake in this case, because the expectations are totally different there, right? But when you're choosing the role itself, obviously you know what you're signing up for, because there is a leader in there. Either he doesn't have time or she doesn't know how to do it, and that's why
Yeah,
obviously they are hiring you in the first place. So, setting those expectations and taking up a job, either you know how to do it or either you have the confidence to figure out along the way, right? So, it's kind of the relationship, right? Relationship
hmm,
check is always on both the sides. So, as far as you're figuring out and doing the stuff, they will start trusting you and they don't mind helping, right? But if you're the one who always complains and not do the job, and obviously no one wants to enjoy listening to those complaints, right? They have a lot of other things to figure out in their job role as a leader. And if you're adding up to that, or
yes,
it's a simple logic, are you adding up or
yeah,
taking off?
yeah, exactly, exactly. Yeah, appreciate. Lastly, before we wrap up, I wanted to ask basically, it's around leaders, right? To cap it up, how would you approach a situation whereby a particular employee is struggling, maybe someone that has already been doing pretty well before, but you know, starts struggling, and you know, I know for salespeople they usually put on PEEP, performance improvement plan. But sometimes it's always when you're on P, most people know that you just have to start, applying for a new job, get a new job.
Yeah.
And for some other fields, I think there's always a way to do it. But for you, how do you see it? How do you approach it? What are some things that can be done differently just to ensure that employees don't even get to that point whereby they're on performance improvement plans just to mitigate it and
Yeah.
retain more employees because nobody wants to keep hiring, hiring, sacking. What can you do to retain more employees?
Yeah, I look at from a person's perspective always. If someone has performed and not performing right now, there is something that's changed
Yeah, exactly. Something
in this,
changed.
something changed in this person's life. Yeah, always try to understand what has changed, because this person has been performing and then now it's not performing. Either it's his personal life or what's happening inside your company, or product, or market. So first, when you understand that, then you'll be in a better position to see how to solve it. Like whether something needs to be solved from this person's life, which means he needs some time to solve those and come back in full force, or if there's something with the product and all that stuff. That's a good thing. Now you know there is something changing in the market that you're not able to sell your product anymore. And that could be a problem for that first rep today, but it will eventually be a problem for everybody that you have to solve for. So it's all about taking from the other person's perspective of what's happening and then figuring out the best solutions.
Yeah, appreciate you saying that. Most times leaders don't want to know what's really going on, what happened.
Yeah.
It's easy to just say, oh, the person has lost it and we need to get a replacement. But I think trying to find out the underlying cause, and I think that's why leaders, some companies have, mental health expert or some sort of, you know, counseling to help that person get, his skills back.
Yeah.
I think that's a good way to approach it and, show the person that you really care. It's not about what he can do as well.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Lax. Appreciate you having this conversation with us and being as transparent as possible. We hope to hopefully have you back in the future to talk about more things that Outplay and SureConnect has been doing. Appreciate you and thank you.
Thanks for the
Yeah.
opportunity. You have a good weekend. Bye bye.
Bye.